Hello, this is Carl Henrik, Sharperson Jr., President and CEO of Sharperson's Executive Leadership Innovation Strategist, and I'm here today to talk about how you find opportunity in a crisis. How do you find opportunity in a crisis? I'm going to start with a simple formula that I use. Crisis can equal creativity. Matter of fact, crisis does equal creativity because you do things in a crisis that you would never do if things were normal. So it causes your creative juices to be used. And then that creativity can equal opportunity if you're looking for opportunity in the crisis, in that creativity. So that's a simple formula that I want you to remember whenever you're in a crisis or a COVID-19 pandemic, which is a type of crisis. Now, there's a thing that I call significant emotional events. And a significant emotional event is something that will rock your world. You will never be the same if you go through a significant emotional event. So what is a significant emotional event? I'll give you some examples. One example might be divorce. You go through divorce, it's pretty traumatic. Never think of life the same. How about job loss? Anyone that's ever lost their job will never take a job for granted, and they'll always be thinking, what if this doesn't work out? What else am I going to do? So they'll have a backup plan and a tertiary plan, right? Another example is loss of a loved one. It could be father, mother, sister, brother, daughter, son, some significant loss like that, or a near-death experience, like a significant illness that you might have or that a loved one might have. But those are all examples of significant emotional events. So with COVID-19 or a pandemic, you have what I call a significant emotional event on steroids, because you have a combination of all of those other significant emotional events that I talked about potentially happening at the exact same time. You could have a job loss and loss of a loved one. You could have sickness, multiple sicknesses in your family at the same time, okay? You could have all kinds of these significant emotional events going on at the same time. So that's why it's so important to know how to deal with these crises, right? There's three things that I think are very, very important to get through a crisis or a significant emotional event. The first thing starts right up here in the mind. It's between the ears. You must have a positive mindset. You must believe that you can achieve, because if you don't believe and your mind's not right, then your body will follow your mind. If your mind says you're going to die, your body's going to die. If your mind says, I'm going to overcome, at least you got a shot. So having a positive mindset is the most important thing, which means you have to put some positive things in your mind in the morning to start your day. And when you go to bed, you got to put some other positive things in your mind when you go to bed so you can have a restful sleep. So having a positive mindset is number one. The second thing is when you have a pandemic or a crisis is your routine gets upset, gets uprooted. So you got to figure out a way to create or recreate a routine that your body and your mind can line up with. Anybody that's had a baby, the baby likes to know what time they're going to get up, They want to know what time they're going to bed. They need to know what time they're going to eat. They need to know what time they're going to go to the bathroom. They need to know what time they're going to play, because the body and the baby likes routine. So what happens if that baby does not have a routine? You end up with a cranky baby. So in this pandemic or a crisis, what we have is a cranky CEO, a cranky father, a cranky mother, a cranky employee, right? A cranky teacher. Everybody's cranky because they don't have a routine. Their routine has been disrupted. So that's the second thing you have to do, is create a routine. And then the third thing you have to do is you have to look at where you want to go and what you want to do. Because your life and your routine has been upset, you have to reset your goals. So you got to say, okay, what is it that I want to accomplish in this pandemic or this crisis? And once you determine that, then you say, okay, in this strategy, this big goal and this big number one strategy that I have, what are some things that I can do, action plan on a daily basis that will help me get to where I want to be? So on a daily basis, I know if I do these things on a daily basis, it will help me get closer to the ultimate goal that I just reassessed. Now, I'm going to give you an example of a lady named Jane Smuckatelli. Now, everybody in the Marine Corps is familiar with Joe Smuckatelli. So Jane Smuckatelli is Joe's sister. Jane Smuckatelli came to me and said, Carl, I'm about to pull my hair out. I said, what's going on? She says, well, pandemic hits. I'm an overachiever. I was in the military. I got deep selected for the next rank. Never failed at anything that I've ever done in life. So I've got this reservist job that I do. I've also got a very challenging other role that I do. And I've always been able to juggle many balls, right? I'm married, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, making plenty of money, husband's making good money. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic hits, COVID-19 hits. Okay, so what changed? When James Smuckatelli was hit by the crisis, she came home to work from home. Guess who else came home? Her husband came home. Guess who else came home? Her 5-year-old in kindergarten came home to learn from virtually. And guess who else came? The 7-year-old, the second grade. So you got 4 people all of a sudden in the same house trying to function at a high level, all doing different things. Her routine, the family's routine was disrupted, totally disrupted, chaos, okay? So the first thing was to determine the mindset. So I asked her, I said, okay, so how's your mind? And she says, well, I don't have any time by myself. And it's just chaotic. When I was working before the pandemic, I at least went in and saw some adults and had some conversation with adults on a daily basis. Now it's just me and the kids. It's driving me up the wall. I said, well, what else is going on? The second thing she said was, well, I have 2 toxic environments that I'm working in. Number one, I have a toxic environment at the reserve unit, and I have a toxic environment in my civilian job. So I said, okay, so that's one thing. So as we talk more, that was the most important thing that she needed to write or get right, which was leading to all the other things that was going on. I said, okay, so if you could wave a wand and change that situation, what would you do? She said, well, I think I would start up my own business. And I think I would move closer to family so that I could get some family support. I says, okay. And I said, okay, so when you want to do that? Oh, I can't do that. I said, well, why can't you do that? Well, I'll feel like a failure. I'll lose some money and all this other kind of stuff. I said, well, what happens if you stay in this role or these roles and you have a heart attack or you have a stroke or you have something else bad that goes on? Then what happens? So she says, oh, wow, okay. I says, well, you need to think about that. And I says, okay, if you stopped working this job today, what would happen? How would it change your life? She thought about it. She thought about it some more. And she finally said, well, it would change our lifestyle a little bit, but I've always been a saver and we'd be okay. We'd have to give up some of the luxuries that we do, but we'd be okay. Okay. So, and then the second thing I said was, what about, moving someplace to be closer to family? Okay, so that can happen. So the mindset, having those conversations about what was really going on and what would change the mind, that was important. And the second thing we talked about was a routine. Okay, so what time are you getting up in the morning? Okay, what are you doing after you get up? Are you exercising? Because exercise is so very, very important. It gets the endorphins running, as well as it works with get your brain going. And you can't work 24/7 without taking a break and not being less productive over time. Okay, so what time are you going to get up? What are you going to do when you get up? When are you going to exercise? When are you going to eat? Okay, and then what time are you going to bed? And when I say go to bed, I'm not talking about just your eyes fall asleep, but your mind is still running. I'm talking about rest where you have peace, you have sweet dreams, get 8 to 6 hours of good, solid sleep. So the second thing was changing the routine. So she created a routine. We created a routine. And the last thing was developing the plan. So the plan was, okay, you've got this goal of starting a business and moving closer to family. Okay, so let's put that down on paper so that we can make sure that on a daily basis, you can accomplish that long-term goal. Okay, so that's what we did, and that's what's important. That's a clear example of something that some people can possibly relate to. Now let's think about the crisis, COVID-19, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, and say, okay, there are some businesses that are not doing well. What are they? One is the restaurant business, the traditional restaurant business. What is another one? The traditional bar or liquor store, right? Because everything's shut down. What's another one that's not doing good? The food industry, okay? But there's some things in the United States and the world that are doing very, very well. So what are some of those? One is personal cleaning, okay? So with COVID and all the sanitary requirements and things like that, if you start up a business to clean things, that's a viable business. It doesn't take a whole lot of capital to do that. What's another example? How about anything that you do in the waste removal business? We're talking hauling trash. I've got a client that has a waste removal business, and he told me that they made more money in the first quarter than they had planned to make for the entire year, because they had a niche that was sorely needed at this point in time. What's another example, another business that you can do? Because people are staying in, older people whose immune systems have been compromised, which means they're not getting out, okay? But they still need stuff delivered. So if you have a car and you have gas and you have a license, you could possibly set up a business where you do home deliveries of anything, okay? So let's talk about a corporation that's doing well in this pandemic. And it's in the food industry. How about Chick-fil-A? Chick-fil-A is making more money now than they've ever made, and this is a pandemic. So what did they do different than everybody else? They pivoted to outside drive-through, fast, efficient, good customer service, and a good product, right? So I can't think of any time of the day that I go by a Chick-fil-A anywhere and cars are not wrapped around the store, wrapped around it. So that's an example, okay? So what's another example of a business that's thriving in this pandemic? How about yard service? The other thing that's happening is it's a lot of people that are purchasing yard stuff, flowers, bricks, gravel, anything to enhance the beauty of their lawn because they've got time. But the other thing is you have some other people, again, that are inside, can't go outside, don't want to go outside, that need somebody to cut their grass, to edge up their hedges, okay? So if you have a lawnmower, okay, you got a back, you can start up a lawn care business. That's definitely needed in this time. What else is needed? Okay, so people are inside. What else is important? People's health is important. Okay, how about exercise? A lot of people aren't going to the YMCAs or the public gyms, okay? So let's say if you have a personal training business, you go to the house, or you have a video and personal equipment that you can sell, okay? So those are things that you can do in this pandemic. But the one that's probably the easiest to get in, if you have the right skills, is making and selling masks. These things that go on your face. If you have a sewing machine and you got thread and you got some skills, get you some creative cloth and you can make you some money, okay? So again, this is how you thrive and find opportunity in a crisis. Now, there's a couple of things that are very, very important in order that you have to manage to make your life as good as it can be given what's going on. There's two things you need to be able to manage. Two very important things that you need to be able to manage. The first one is time. You need to be able to manage your time. Why is that important? Because you only get 24 hours in a day, times 7 days a week, times 12 months a year, times 365 days a year. So that's the only hours that you have in a day. So you have to maximize that time based on what you do on a daily basis. You got to manage that time. So what are you going to do with your time? It's very, very important. The second thing that you have to be a good manager of is managing change. Change is something that you really can't control because change is going to occur. Change is going to occur. You might not know when it's going to occur, but I guarantee you it's going to occur. There are 4 seasons in a year: summer, spring, fall, and winter. 4 seasons. So what do you get guaranteed every year? You're going to get a different season about every 3 months, guaranteed. So you don't have your closet full of short sleeve shirts and shorts because you know winter's coming. And when the weather changes, you need to be able to pivot and put some other stuff on. So as you go through life, you're going to have hills and you're going to have valleys, right? But how you manage that change is really what's important. So you take time managing that and managing the change, and that will help you have a pretty productive life as best as you can. Because again, you don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's guaranteed to die at some point in time, which means you have relatives, you have friends that are no longer going to be here, okay? You have natural disasters that are going to occur, some that you create, some that you don't create, maybe like a car accident or something. Anyway, stuff's going to happen. But when it happens, you got to be able to manage your time and manage that change. Now, the best way to manage time and manage change is to create a plan. Having a plan and working that plan is the only way I know to be able to manage time and change. So you anticipate everything. Okay, so you over deliver and under expect. Okay, so if you're going through life and something's going to happen, you plan for the worst and hope for the best. Plan for the worst, hope for the best, and plan. Now, when I say plan and have a routine, every hour in your day should be blocked off. Now, you can have an hour that says this is playtime or this is golf time. It doesn't make any difference, right? But if you don't have anything in that block, the natural tendency is to waste away the time. I can remember when I was playing football at the Naval Academy, okay? During football season, stuff had to click. I had to get my lesson because I had practice and a bunch of other stuff to do, okay? During the non-football season, I found myself wasting time, right? So having a plan and being busy can be a great reward. So remember, a plan can help you manage time and manage change, which are two things that are definitely going to happen and you may not be able to control. So let's talk a little bit about my business, okay? Pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, people aren't calling me to speak. There's not a whole lot of coaching going on, face-to-face coaching, no workshops. A lot of people aren't expecting people to move around, so there's a lot of talent on the street, so a lot of people aren't using recruiters. So after about a week or two, I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I says, okay, what am I going to do? So there's this parable that I learned as a very young boy. There was this young man who was a servant leader, and he had 12 people that reported to him. And those 12 people had hundreds of people that reported to them. So the 12 that reported to the servant leader said, boss, our people are hungry and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to feed them. We don't have enough food to feed them. So what are we going to do? Help us out. So the servant leader said this. The servant leader says, what do you have? Tell me what you have. They said, well, we got a few fish, we got some bread, and we got some seed. So the servant leader says, give me what you have, and I will multiply it. So what the servant leader did was took the fish, the bread, and the seeds and helped the 12 create some things for the hundreds. So the hundreds took the seeds, had crops, raised animals, took care of each other, and what they had, they used to multiply to feed the hundreds. So I said, thinking about that parable, what do I have? What is it that I have that I can use? I says, well, I've got 5,000 contacts on my LinkedIn page at the time, and I've got 3,000 on my Facebook page. How about if I contact those individuals, start building relationships, finding out how I can help them, and plant some seed? So that's what I did. On a daily basis, I would contact people, ask them how I can help them, add value to their life. Now, that's not a short-term solution. It's a long-term solution. But I had a plan, and that plan allowed me on a daily basis to get up and do something as I planted these seeds that would produce fruit, and hopefully good fruit, big trees, or whatever I planted and expected to grow. So that's an example of what I did during this crisis. Now, I learned some techniques when I was about 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a type of cancer. So during that time period, I had to figure out what I was going to do in this crisis. And there's some things I learned before that while I was at the Naval Academy. At the Naval Academy, you get a lot of things thrown at you at one time. You got to be able to manage your time. You got to be able to have a plan, and you got to do things on a daily basis to make sure that you're going to get to where you need to be, right? So I always thought that it was difficult to graduate and difficult to get all that stuff done. But eventually, I worked my plan, kept my head down, and eventually I graduated. So those same techniques I learned and used when I had my cancer battle, okay? So when I had my cancer battle, the first thing I had to do was get my mind right. Okay, so how did I do that? Put some positive things in my mind. The second thing I needed to do is I needed to create a routine. So before that, I used to exercise at the gym. Okay, so during this crisis, my routine consisted of me walking every day for a couple of hours. Okay, so I made sure that I stayed as healthy as I could. And then I had a plan. The plan was to, number one, pay attention to the doctors and do exactly what they told me to do. Take the medicine, exercise, and take care of my body. That was the most important thing that I could do at that point in time. So when I had this crisis that I had, that's kind of what I reverted to, was to be able to do that. So being able to manage a crisis and manage your time is something that you can do all the time. It's a skill that you're going to need throughout your life. Now, there's another crisis that has recently occurred in my life. So in March the 23rd, my wife was supposed to have back surgery, right? And she's had back pain for 15 years. I can't remember when she did not have back pain, but there was a cyst that started growing between L4 and L5. So finally, we had something that we could attack. So we went to the doctors and said, we're going to have surgery. My wife was going to have back surgery. Okay, now back surgery is a very tough surgery to recover from because you can't bend, lean, or twist for several months, right? So it's pretty debilitating. So we did that. We had a plan. We had good doctors. We had the surgery. We followed the plan. And after about 2 months after the surgery, my wife was recovering well. And because she wasn't in the pain that she'd been in for so long, she found out that she had a lump on her breast. She felt a lump that was unusual. So she had a mammogram. The mammogram led to an MRI, and the MRI led to a diagnosis of breast cancer, right? Breast cancer. Wow. Back surgery, breast cancer, pandemic, all at the same time. But what's the blessing in the storm of all that? If she had not had the back surgery and was not in the pain that she had been in historically, she probably would not have found the lump in her breast. And the lump in her breast was very, very aggressive because 7 months prior, she had a mammogram, right? So if she had not felt that lump and she was still in that pain, probably in a very short period of time, that cancer would have multiplied. It would have been a much more difficult thing to eradicate. So that's the blessing in the storm. So we have the diagnosis, okay, and then we get with the doctors and we put together a plan. We put together a plan, and in this plan, there's 20 straight weeks of chemotherapy. 20 straight weeks of chemotherapy. Now, the other thing that happens during this time period, because again, we're looking for opportunity in a crisis. So one opportunity was the fact that the back surgery was a blessing because it got rid of the pain, which allowed my wife to see the lump. Okay, so that's a blessing in the storm. Another blessing, which was happening at the same time, is because a lot of people had an opportunity to come home and work, our daughter, who lives in Virginia, had an opportunity to work from home. So she can work from home in Virginia, or she can work from home in South Carolina. So she came and visited us for the back surgery, right? And then while she was here for the back surgery, that's when we got the breast cancer diagnosis. So now she's here, an opportunity to be here for that whole time, okay? So if the pandemic had not occurred, it probably would have been a little bit more difficult to make all that happen, right? So that's an example of identifying opportunity in a crisis. Now, the other thing I talked about was my cancer journey, and that cancer journey, as well as other adversity in my life from growing up, integrating the school during the same time period as the movie Remember the Titans, and then going to the Naval Academy, playing football at the Naval Academy, joining the Marine Corps, becoming a pilot in the Marine Corps, okay, and then working for 3 Fortune 500 companies, okay, and then working for a privately held company, golf ball company, as the vice president of manufacturing, and then being able to be an entrepreneur, okay, as well as this cancer journey that I had. But all of that required overcoming adversity. So I've documented all of that in my life-changing book called Sharp Leadership: Overcome Adversity to Lead with Authenticity. So you can get that on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, or you can go to my website, www.carlsharpersonjr.com. But I wanted to let you know that overcoming adversity and overcoming a crisis has been documented in Sharp Leadership. It's a very easy read, has a lot of nuggets in it. I had a 10-year-old read it. I had a 90-year-old Naval Academy graduate purchase 10 books, 4 for his sons, 6 for his grandsons. I had a Marine Corps veteran that got out of the Marine Corps with 17 years of service and post-traumatic stress disorder. He said it was the first book he ever read from cover to cover in his life. Now that is some powerful stuff. So when you think about overcoming adversity or overcoming a crisis, again, there's 3 things that you must do. Number 1, you have to have a positive mindset. You got to believe that you can achieve. Wherever your mind goes, your body will follow. Number 2, create a routine. What time are you going to get up? What time are you going to go to bed? When are you going to exercise? What are you going to do while you're up? When are you going to eat? When are you going to spend time with your family? When are you going to do some entertainment, have some fun, relax, right? All that stuff needs to be in a routine. And then the last thing is you have to reassess your goals and then develop some strategies. And then identify that key strategy, the most important strategy that you want to attack at the time, and then create an action plan so that every day, every minute of your life, you know that if you're doing the things that's on your plan, it's going to get you to where you want to be and get you to that goal that you recently reassessed because your routine was disrupted. So what I do and what I think my value add is, I help individuals and I help organizations maximize their potential. I help them identify what they want to do. I help them identify strategies and help them put together plans to maximize their potential, because I know that only 50% of the people or 100% of the people are working at 50% of their capacity, right? Primarily because of 2 reasons. Number 1, they don't have the right person coaching them or leading them. And the second thing is they're not working or performing in an area where they're gifted in. Okay, so they're not gifted in whatever they're doing to maximize their talents. So those two things are the primary reasons that people perform at such a low level. Now, one of the things that I'm going to offer today is when you see this teaching, this learning, you're going to have 24 hours. And within 24 hours, what I need you to do is to contact me on my website. If you just go to www.carlsharpersonjr.com, which is my website, okay, connect with me and say that you want to get a free coaching session, then I will honor that request. But you must respond within 24 hours of the time that you see this teaching and this learning. It has been a pleasure. And I just want you to know that it is possible to find opportunity in a crisis. This is Carl Henrik Sharperson Jr., President, CEO of Sharperson's Executive Leadership Innovation Strategist, and I'm signing off. Have a blessed day.